Hey, welcome to another archive edition of Chad's Beer Podcast. This week I was talking to Jeremy Hosier of Westmere Beverage Brew Crew and also of Steadfast Beer Company. You know how I do the shorts, so the other day I did a short of my review of Pum King, first time ever having it. My friend at the time, Jeremy, who's the star of this episode, obviously, brought it over. This was August of 2009, my first time ever having Pum King. It was a white whale back then, and it only came in the 22-ounce bottles. And, since he was the owner and manager of the beer store, he was able to grab a bottle and bring it over. And if you're a real hardcore fan of this show, you might remember I actually did a tour of the beer store all the way back in May of 2009. I did another one in February of 2011, which I will include both of those videos at the end of this podcast. Sorry for the audio listeners. You might lose a thing or two by only listening to it instead of watching it. But anyway, yeah, so this was our review of Pum King, my first time ever having it. And I had Jeremy on the show. I called it Interview with a Craft Beer Professional because he was the owner and manager of Brew Crew, which is funny. They still have their the Blogspot website is still there, but they haven't updated since 2010. And then this is the actual website of there's two stores called Brew Crew, Westmere Beverage on Western Ave in Gilderland, which was in walking distance of my apartment back then, and then Oliver's Beverage, which is closer to downtown. I guess you could call it Midtown Albany. Although there isn't a whole lot of information on this website, so it's still there. Anyway, Jeremy later started Steadfast Beer Company, not brewing, because they didn't actually own the brewery. They were a client brewer, or gypsy brewer, whatever you want to call them. And they made all gluten-free beers. And their website is still up, but it doesn't look like they've actually... I don't know if they're still in business. I checked their Instagram, and they haven't updated it since 2020 or 2021. It's been a long time, so I don't believe they're still around, although the website is still up. So, if you're in Albany, maybe or maybe if Kyle from No Hype Beer Reviews is watching this, maybe he can... Because I know he's in Albany. Maybe he can tell me if they're still around or not. I'm really bearing the lead here. So, unfortunately, Jeremy died in, I believe, early 2020. It was like right when COVID hit. I don't know if he died from COVID or something like that, but I just remember Jay told me that Jeremy died. So, I am not monetizing this particular episode, but, so... And this is a really deep cut episode, too. Like, if you're not from Albany, you might not have any interest in this one. In fact, if you're watching this far, you're still awesome. But anyway, so if you want to know what it's like to run and manage a local beer store, this episode is basically two parts. First, I talked to him about him as a beer store manager / owner, and then I talked to him about owning the gluten-free Steadfast Beer Company. And then we'll close with the two archive tours of his beer store from 2009 and 2011. And actually, I'm going up to New York in November as of now, and maybe we'll do another follow-up, 13 years later. So, enjoy, and I will see you for the next episode. Bye. Hey, welcome to a very long overdue of Interview with a Craft Beer Professional. You remember Jeremy Hosier from Westmere Beverage? 3 years ago, you helped me review Pum King for the first time.
I remember.
You haven't been back since then, but you started your own beer company, Steadfast Beer Company, and this is your first beer, your flagship beer. It's you talk about it. It's your beer.
I guess a lot has happened in 3 years, but at Steadfast Beer Company, we bill ourselves as a gluten-free craft beer company. We're based here in Albany, New York. We have one beer in our repertoire so far, and he said it's our flagship. Sorghum Pale Ale. It's a 6.8%, 70 IBU gluten-free beer styled after an American Pale Ale. We use Columbus and Cascade hops, sorghum extract, molasses, and a clean fermenting American ale yeast.
Cool.
Simple recipe.
Yeah, so how did you get started in gluten-free beer? Everybody and their brother's making regular beer these days. So why'd you go a gluten-free route?
Well, as you mentioned before, I work in the beer retail business here in Albany, and I've been working with the same organization, the Brew Crew, for 6 or 7 years now, and that's about the same time that I've been homebrewing. And and just working at the store and seeing what sold and what didn't, and noticing that these gluten-free beers were selling. I tried a great number of Belgian ales, American microbrews, etc., but I never tried a gluten-free beer. So I bought a mixed 6-pack of them and tried them over the course of a week. This is years ago. And the first thing I noticed is that besides the fact that, wow, these don't quite taste like regular beer, these aren't that great, but why would I expect them to be?
Right.
Was, why is there nothing hoppy?
Yeah.
I looked up what gluten was. Gluten is a protein matrix found in barley, wheat, and rye. There's no gluten in hops. Everybody loves a nice IPA, or at least most people love an IPA.
Craft beer lovers.
Sure. So set out to homebrew a gluten-free beer that had some hop character to it.
Yeah. So how do you go about even brewing a gluten-free homebrew? Because, most homebrew stores I go to, do homebrew stores carry the equipment and ingredients?
They do, and that wasn't always the case. When the idea first crossed my mind, I didn't really act on the idea immediately, so I'm not sure what was available. But coincidentally, right around the time that I really decided to pounce on the idea, local homebrew stores were stocking sorghum. They've always stocked molasses and honey because you can apply those to a lot of other beers. But especially online homebrew stores, they stock sorghum, and they have for a while. It's a brewer's extract. It's enzyme altered to be a 1-to-1 replacement actually for malt extract.
All right, so you start brewing, homebrew sorghum-based beer. Like, how many times did you do this recipe? How many times did you have to do it to perfect it to where you want to be? Like, I don't know, either you wanted it to be, or you give it to other people and they'd be like, wow, this is just good, I would buy this in the store. Like,
I'd say 4 to 6 times.
Really?
Yeah, and all the batches varied drastically. We're not like scientific professionals here, so rather than look up the SRM of the extract, we actually just brewed with it. And the first beer we produced was straight sorghum and hops, no fining agents, no nothing, and it was this cloudy, mustard yellow, overly bitter ale, and it was offensive to look at, and it was okay. It tasted okay, but it definitely needed some cleaning up. We made some overly sweet brown sugar infused beers, and I'd say 4 to 6 times is when we got the right mix. Like when we realized we needed to be in the 6 to 7% alcohol range to get the right flavor balance. Realized that the IBUs need to be a little higher than in a normal pale ale to sort of play well with our other flavors.
Yeah.
Sorghum has its own taste. You can do just a little bit of research and find that everyone says sorghum tastes different. Sorghum tastes weird.
Yeah.
It's just different.
It's like a twangy, rustic, earthy kind of thing.
Yep. A little bit of bitterness. Sometimes sour.
Yeah.
It depends. It may depend on the yeast. There's a lot of factors.
Yeah. So how do you go about going from a home brewer to turning it into a professional, on the market, on store shelves, beer company?
Well, that was probably a 2-year process. The first step was certainly to get legally organized, form a company.
Yeah.
And there's licensing, federal basic permit from the TTB. Since we're a contract brewer, we have a wholesale license. Since the facility that makes our beer is not owned by us.
Right.
So we're essentially a wholesaler, though the recipe is ours, the brand is ours, the liquid is ours. So there was the licensing, and then shopping around for a brewery. You of all people know that there's a lot of breweries in planning. There's a lot of great beer being made, and contract brewing is getting big. And there's not a lot of places with any capacity to offer. But we lucked out and we found a very good fit in Holyoke, Massachusetts, at a place called Paper City Brewery.
Yeah.
They have a 20-barrel system, small enough to suit our needs, and they had capacity when we locked in with them. And we courted quite a few breweries, and the issue then, which is almost a year and a half ago, was capacity.
Yeah. So I seen actually on Craig's blog, you guys actually went out there and were brewing it. Now, do you still go out there and actually brew it, or do they do it for you?
I'm there for the brew sessions. Legally, it's his equipment. He administers the brew, and he handles his, he twists the dials on the kettle and makes sure his temperatures are right and all that. But
right.
I'm certainly there to look important and put the hops in.
So what's your title? Are you owner / brewmaster, or?
Well, I don't know. I'm one of the owners, and I developed the recipe with some help from our intern, Drew. But
We used to work at the store.
I don't know title wise.
Yeah.
I haven't made up any titles for myself
Thought
yet.
of it. Yeah. So how many batches have been made, and how big are the batches at a time?
The batches are 20 barrels, give or take. So we have our 12 pack of 22 ounce bottles. We get from 250 to 280 cases per batch, depending on how much we put in the kettle that day.
So that's like what, 4,000 bottles, something like
Yeah,
that?
it's over 3,000.
Okay.
And we're on our fourth batch. Our fourth batch is finishing up dry hopping right now, and we're gonna rack and bottle it next week.
Right.
So
And so like what's your distribution range? Like I've seen you're in bars and stores here in the Capital District. So what's your local, quote unquote, local distribution range?
we're paired with DeCrescenti Distributing. They're based in Mechanicville. They're the dominant distributor in our area. And we're good friends with them going a long way back, and they took us on 3 months ago. Their distribution footprint is 11 counties. It's basically the Albany, Schenectady, Saratoga, Troy area,
Right.
east of Vermont, and south as far as Catskill, if I'm not mistaken. So they have a pretty good footprint, and they are a well put together outfit. So we've been able to grab about 80 accounts in the last 3 months.
Right.
I've been juggling the store and the beer company half-time, 3 days, store 3 days for Steadfast, and I've been going out basically learning how to do the beer rep job,
Yeah.
selling it in where I can. And locally, that's who takes care of us. We actually just set up a distribution deal with Republic National Distributing Company in Colorado. They cover the whole state of Colorado.
Yeah.
And so far we have shipped them a pallet and a half of beer. I believe they just got it set up and started selling last week, so we should be getting some reports pretty soon on how things are going out there.
And you're allowed to sell on the website too. Like people like in California or Alaska or Hawaii can mail order.
Right. Oliver's Beverage, one of the stores of the Brew Crew, they're located in Albany. They're licensed to ship beer to states that allow it.
Right.
They have a disclaimer on their website. There's a handful of states that simply don't allow it. Some states have a special permit. Some states there's no rules.
Right. Why is it called Steadfast?
Our proposed name for the company, well, not my proposed name rather, was to be Jeremy's Brewing Company, because when I pitched this idea to my partner, he wanted me to be the face of the company. You're the guy who made the beer, it's your attention to detail that made this happen, so we're going to put your face on the packaging and name the beer after you. And I was humble, but that's not my style.
Right.
At the last minute, we found out from the TTB that we actually couldn't call ourselves that. We had to come up with a DBA within a 24-hour period, or our application was going to go to the back of the pile. So I got the phone call, come up with a name in the next 18 hours. And just, I was thinking, and we were maybe thinking of theming it after the Adirondacks, because we're so close to the
Right.
Adirondack Mountains.
Right.
But those ideas had kind of already been played. And I'm thinking the celiac lifestyle, when you go gluten-free, it kind of turns your world upside down for a time, I can only imagine, because a lot of the things you just threw into your shopping cart last week, you simply can't anymore. You have to read every
Right.
label. Processed foods, you have to closely examine before consuming them. If you were a beer lover, all of your old favorites, you can't put in your fridge anymore. And it was the word was on the tip of my brain for a long time, and I wanted just something that meant tough, something that meant dedicated and strong. And I thought of it eventually, Steadfast. And when I finally thought of it, I realized it seems to be like an old English kind of word, a word you don't really hear in the modern vernacular all that much.
Mm-hmm.
And when you Google the word Steadfast,
Right.
now you see our beer a little bit, but if you do an image search, it's mostly religious themes and naval battleship themes. So, I mean, we don't necessarily have any affiliation with either of those two themes, but certainly you can see our little guy, little Sisyphus, pushing the boulder up the hill, the symbol of constant struggle, yet remaining strong.
Yeah.
Be steadfast. It's our slogan now.
And did you design the labels and the logo and all that stuff, or was like an artist do that for you?
We do have a graphic artist who works for us, and we've only had one. She's made everything so far. The compass was her. the A's in our word Steadfast there.
Right.
They look like little arrows. That was her idea. The color scheme was her. The Boulder Man I came up with in a dream. I had my wife draw it by hand, and then
That's what this one is?
yep, our graphic artist then rendered it. So it's been collaborative, but we do have a graphic artist doing the nuts and bolts of the artwork.
Cool. Will there be a Steadfast Light or Steadfast Lager or other Steadfast products?
We definitely want to roll out more products, and we have plans to do so relatively soon, actually. Light beer, I'm not so sure about, simply because we want to be... The reason we started this whole thing was there was no bold or inspired option in the gluten-free beer section. Products to be there as shelf fillers, but nothing there for a purpose, nothing to give the craft beer enthusiasts who got diagnosed with celiac disease an option that's made with care by someone who loves beer. So light beer, I don't know.
6.8 is pretty big for a pale ale.
Yeah, I mean, if we dialed it down to 5%, I guess
Or
that would be Steadfast Light.
Steadfast Session beer.
Yeah, certainly our next beer, which I'm not going to reveal too many details. It's going to be lighter in color. It will be Belgian in influence and lower in alcohol.
Cool. And why 22-ounce bottles?
Oh, in the beginning, it was purposes of ease, less packaging, less artwork for the packaging, and sustainability. If you go into the store and you see a bomber of a beer, it's $7.99. The 6-pack is $10.99.
Right.
If you buy it by the bomber, you're paying $24 a 6-pack. Everybody's making more on that and per ounce. And in the beginning, we were thinking we would have to do that for sustainability. Our beer comes to $5.99 at most retailers, which for a 6.8% alcohol specialty product is it's right in line with everything else. But we're finding that we need the 12-ounce more than we need the 22-ounce, and we actually are going to roll out 12-ouncers within the month of September of this year with any luck.
Are they bottle conditioned?
No, heavily filtered. There's no sediment, and it's force carbonated and no bottle conditioning.
Is it on tap or on cask anywhere?
We are filling a cask for a local bar as we speak, and we have filled some kegs in the past, but those were mostly for, we threw them on tap at Oliver's Beverage, the brew crew, and we gave a promotional price for growlers just to get the name out there. We took some 6 barrels home for our home kegerators. It was really just for the novelty of saying, I'm really excited to have a beer company, and look, I'm drinking my own beer on tap. This is really cool.
Yeah. I guess that's about it. I just, what's been like the biggest surprise or highest point or whatever since you've been doing this like full time, like about 6-7 months now, 8 months?
I actually haven't. I've been doing it half time in all my spare time for a while. The highest point, aside from the fact that we've been creeping along, getting things.
I've seen you guys at Beer Fest.
Yeah, that's been great. You meet a ton of people, and you might sample a couple hundred people in a day, and really, we've noticed the only people that ever don't like the beer are the people who are used to light, watery beers. They say, oh, Mick Ultra is my beer, or I'm a Coors Light person. But anyone who has, it seems to me, age group doesn't matter, whether or not you have to have gluten doesn't matter. They recognize the ale part of it, which is cool to me, because people like you and I who drink a lot of craft beer, when you taste it, and you don't, if I didn't tell you it was gluten-free, you might say there's something different about this. And of course, it's the sorghum. But someone who enjoys beer, but beer's not a lifestyle for them, they have a really, kind-hearted appreciation for it, which is really humbling.
Right. Have you had celiac people come up to you and say, "Oh my God, finally a beer"?
A few times, and I thank you for saying that, because that's certainly the high. That's certainly the pinnacle. At a beer fest, you can assume most people who attend a beer fest aren't celiac and can have gluten, because if you spend $30 on a ticket to basically drink gluten all day, you're probably not celiac. But a lady came up to us and said, I thought I was going to be the DD today. My husband loves these things, but I'm gluten-free.
Right.
So can I try your beer? And the lady tried it, and her eyes went wide, and she said, I just got chills. I haven't tasted a beer that tastes like a beer in 10 years. I can't believe this. This is fantastic. We're going to have to get a cab. And it was total affirmation. It felt great to hear that.
That's cool. Well, cheers to you, ma'am. Thanks for doing this interview, Jeremy.
Thank you, Chad.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Interview with a Craft Beer Professional, back-to-back. with Jeremy Hosier of Steadfast Beer Company.
Hello.
Except we're not talking to you as Steadfast this time. You are, or were for years, the manager of Westmere Beverage Brew Crew, the beer store, which we've done a couple of videos there. But we, as a craft beer enthusiast, and I was saying this to you off camera, is that as a retailer, you're right there on that nexus between the industry, the brewers, the distributors, and us, the actual drinkers, the consumers. So you're at that crossroads there, and I would love to just pick the brain of a retailer who sees all this stuff every day, all day.
Sure. We're the interface. We're the customer interface.
Yeah. So as a retailer, how does your perspective on the beer industry differ from the average consumer like me?
I would, since starting, just knowledge. I mean, there's a lot of beer drinkers out there who are consumers, aren't in the business, that know a lot, but just the absolute knowledge and the accurate knowledge. Sort of like the behind the scenes, too, like what companies own what other companies, and
Right.
what certain little things like why do pumpkin ales come out so early now? Like, it's rather than just seeing a product on a shelf, appreciating it, we live it. So I think we just know a lot more.
Yeah. They say craft beer only accounts for 10 to 15% of the market share. Is that reflected in your sales?
I think we're probably higher. We craft beer is the lifeblood of our business at this point.
Really?
And it's always growing. We do sell more regular domestic and import beer than we do of craft beer, but if we didn't have craft beer, we would be humming a very different tune.
Because people can just go out and set a price chart.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can get a lot of good beer at Price Chopper, and that's the trend that's increasing.
Not kegs.
Right. Well, if you want a keg, you go to a beverage center, and beverage centers are sort of unique to upstate New York. You can go to another state and you'll be able to get wine, liquor, kegs, and everything all in one stop. But the selection is growing outside of our store all the time, and it really behooves us to have as much variety as we can.
Right. And this kind of touches up on what we just said. Like, I've been to your store weekly. It seems that non-macro beer accounts for 80-90% of your floor space.
I don't know. Between 70 and 80 might be true. We do use our basement for warehousing, but in terms of the Heineken has a slot on a pallet, and when it gets low, you refill it. But Gluten Carolus has 7 different beers, and that's you got to display them differently. So it's to sell them, you need to devote a lot of space.
Yeah. So how far in advance do you place an order? Like, we're shooting this in August. Are you ordering Christmas beer now, or just are you ordering pumpkin beer now?
We're ordering pumpkin beer now. There's certain things there are pre-orders on. Like if it's a special order, and say a distributor doesn't necessarily want to come up with their own number for how many they want to take from the brewery, they'll go around to accounts like me and pre-sell. How many do you want? How many do you want? They'll bring in just enough, and it's already sold.
Yeah.
That's far in advance. But we'll order on a Tuesday for Wednesday. We'll order on Wednesday for Thursday.
Have you ever gotten burned on a product you thought was going to sell well that didn't?
All the time. It's just part of it. Yeah. Usually, the breweries, distributors are willing to play ball, and if something gets really old, we either get rid of it, send it back, or we can find a way to discount it and move it, get it out. But yeah, I mean, it's 1,500 plus different brands. Something's going to sit there.
Yeah. So what's the best selling beer in your store?
That's Budweiser. Most frequent rings, sure. And,
regular Bud, not Bud Light?
Regular Bud does well for us. Bud Light is the biggest beer nationwide, but we're actually in a little pocket here where Coors Light dominates Bud Light volume-wise. And we sell a lot of macros. And when it comes to craft, I don't know if there's one that stands out. Of course, Dogfish 60 Minute we order a lot of, and we sell a lot of.
Yeah. But
the craft beer drinker, as you know, is the least loyal consumer type because of the need to experiment.
Yeah, because you want to try everything.
You would never say, oh, I like IPAs, but I only drink this IPA. I love IPAs. Which one can I try next? I want to fall in love again.
Right. You guys sell beer from Vietnam and Russia and obscure places like that. A, do people actually buy it, and B, how much?
Yes, they do. Sometimes very little. Sometimes you'd be surprised. thankfully, a lot of those type of beers are loaded with preservatives, and they can stay on the shelf for a good long time. But we sell beer to veterans a lot. I used to drink this when I was in the service, and we actually sell a lot of Polish beer because there's some people of Polish heritage in the area that love to drink the beer of their home country.
Plus the Jywick Porter is like 9.5 ABV, and it's like $3.
The Baltic Porter is the best value out there for any beer style.
Are expiration dates / freshness dates law? Can you get in trouble for selling something past the expiration date?
Legally, I'm going to say no. If it depends on whose beer it is, how severe the reaction though. If the CEO of Miller Coors walks into my store and he sees a case of Miller Lite that's out of code by a year, someone's going to get in trouble.
Right.
That's the version of law there. But if Sam Adams goes out of code, they buy it back. If some other micro beer goes out of code, and it just depends why it went out of code. Was it sold into us with 7 days left on the freshness? Then we can negotiate sending it back. If we bought it in May of 2011 and it's still there in May of 2012, it's on us. So we do what we got to do, get out of there.
Right. It's like some beers improve with age. Like a lot of your Belgians, like I would want to see the oldest one of the Chimay Blue you have, as opposed to the Dogfish 60. Maybe I want the newest one. Like because beer, as a brewer and as a retailer, you can verify this. Microbes can't live in beer. Like when you have milk or yogurt that goes past the expiration date, you get sick if you eat it. But
beer can't kill you if it goes past its date. But the whole deal there is
it just tastes bad.
The date's put on there by the brewer, and I know if we're talking true craft beer here, they put that date on there because that's the cutoff date for you to taste their beer the way you want it, the way they want you to taste it, for you to get that impression that they want you to get.
Right.
And if it's a different beer by the time that date passes, then it's not the beer they brewed.
Right. This kind of touches up on the last question. How do you determine when beer has been sitting on the shelf for too long?
Well, like I said, we carry a lot of brands, and some sit more than others. They all move in some way, but you'll just doing your work and walk by something and say, I'm going to check when the last time we got that in was. And if it's surprisingly a long time ago, put it in the 50% off bin, or just take it off the shelf and see if the distributor will take it back.
Yeah. So what happens with beer that gets sent back? The distributor takes it back and they go back to the brewery, or they destroy it and it's a tax write-off? Or
it gets destroyed most times, either by the distributor or the brewery. It's a pretty small thing. It doesn't happen a lot. Because if I made a beer and I sold it fresh to the distributor sold it fresh to the retailer, and it's still there a year later,
right?
I don't want to buy it back. Neither does the distributor, so just get rid of it.
Yeah. Like I know Sam Adams, they used to have those commercials. They said if it's old beer, they buy it back. It's like, I guess they destroy it, but
yeah, they definitely.
It seems like they would, just from a financial point of view, it's like it seems. I don't understand the point of that. But.
Well, it's you're investing in your image.
Yeah. How do you decide what beers to carry on tap for growlers?
Well, the times are changing for growlers because you can now buy them at gas stations. The local grocery store chain just made plans to install a growler system.
Really?
It used to be a few years ago that our store, Westmere Beverage, was one of half a dozen places to get a growler in the area. And back then it was pick the beers that we like, pick fun beers, pick beers that you can't get in the bottle. And to differentiate ourselves from our competitors, rather than staying in that $8.99 to $10.99 comfort zone and putting sessionable beer on tap, we would put some sessionable beers on tap, but also some crazy stuff. We've had Dogfish 120-minute Dogfish Worldwide Stout on tap. We used to buy all the specialty Omegang releases in kegs. Yeah. They would get pretty expensive, but they would sell. Now, since we have so many competitors, we're more careful about those crazy beers.
Right.
You don't usually see a $30 growler on our system anymore. But we do try to put stuff on that you can't get otherwise. For instance, Captain Lawrence is not locally distributed, so we kind of go out of our way to grab half a dozen kegs.
Well, you've had something like a Oscar Blues 1050, like a really expensive pour, but it's really hard to find that beer on tap.
Right. Yeah,
On
maybe.
this side of the country.
Yeah, well, when we're doing our order, the guy will show his inventory sheet and it'll show 3 5-gallon kegs. So we say, do we want to do this? Sure. And we buy it. And
Is it almost like a collector's mentality? Like I collect comics, and it's like you see that one obscure thing, and it's like, I want that.
yeah, I certainly feel that way sometimes looking at the list. It's fun to say you've got it on tap, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, when you buy a $30 growler, it's not just $30 for half a gallon of beer, but like you just said, $10.50. It's 10 and change in alcohol, Imperial Stout, and you've got a half gallon is how you normally buy milk.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Invite some friends over for that night.
Yeah, you mentioned session beers a minute ago. Like, the United States doesn't really have a session beer culture like the way the UK does. And actually, like, our beers are getting bigger and bigger all the time. I don't know if you can account for this as a retailer and also as an insider, as a brewer, but it's like, why isn't there more smaller ABV beer like 4% and under, 4.5% and under?
Well, I think our taste in what's cool, what's new, and what's delicious in the craft beer world is always changing.
Yeah.
Remember when 4-packs of Imperial beer, that was the thing. Everybody was coming out with 4-packs, and you knew that it was widespread when Sam Adams jumped into the market.
Yeah.
I think that the sessionability of beer is definitely on the rise, and that we will see more of it. But also, like, United States sessionable is certainly in the 5s range.
Yeah.
When you go below 5, it's a very light beer, and
Yeah.
on the coattails of drinking bourbon barrel-aged barley wine.
And they just don't, just technically speaking, they don't travel well, and they certainly don't age well.
No, it's true. It's a risk to everybody, except, well, it's a risk to the consumer too. Is what I'm buying fresh? It has to be a freshness mentality.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, there's less risk associated with a 9% stout. You can let it sit
right.
there for 6 months and it'll be all right.
It might actually improve too.
Sure.
What beer or brand sells well that would surprise a lot of people?
Something that may surprise you is the amount of German beer that we sell.
Yeah.
There is no age group associated with German beer, and since we got our German beer garden downtown on Broadway a couple years ago, they opened that place, and German beer awareness has grown a lot, and we sell tons of Kolsch, Pilsners, Dunkel lagers, wheat beers of all types, and we even have a Goza in stock, and it sells. It's pretty cool because the Germans are so strict about their beer, and it's not extreme in any way, but more and more people are starting to notice how good it is.
Yeah. What's a hidden gem in your store?
A hidden gem.
Like anything.
Well, actually, since you were talking about beer from Vietnam and Russia earlier, we have our import aisle categorized by country. When you're going, walking past the Scandinavian beer section, there's a ton of Mikkeller, Nugna I think how you say that, and Evil Twin. I mean, these are world-class designer gypsy brewers, and their beer is in with like 4% preservative lager. So I mean, if you to the naked eye, it might not look like anything special, but to the people who know, I mean, there's some of the best beers in the world in that little 4-foot shelf.
Yeah. I saw there seems to be, I don't think it's going to get any traction, but on Twitter, a lot of the other beer nerds are like, organize beer stores by style. Like, you organize a beer store, you organize it by country and then by state for all the American beers. Had you guys ever thought about that? Like, we should do IPAs over here, stouts over here, wheats over here?
I've heard this a lot, and in my mind, in my OCD mind, I want it too. But the fact that our business model is to carry everything.
Right.
If it's a skunky preservative lager, we're going to carry it. If it is the freshest, most delicious IPA on the planet, we're going to carry it. So if you're going to carry everything and then also commit to arranging by style, not only are you creating a problem of where do you draw the line with some of the styles of these beers that basically don't have a style and don't deserve a style, it would be a way to poorly manage your floor space, and for the one customer satisfied, I think it would confuse 10.
Yeah.
If you have a foot traffic only boutique type store that says we're going to carry 100 different beers and no more, no less, and we're going to hand select them, then by style, sure.
Right. Now you're a salesman. I'm sure you get a lot of BMC drinkers in there. How do you upsell, or can you upsell craft beer to physio lager drinking?
Well, you certainly can try, and you know, if a guy likes to come to my store and buy Budweiser regularly, perhaps he could be sold on something better.
Right.
Perhaps not. I have found that just the buzz that we generate around our craft beer, around our specialty products, like you said, the metal floor space we give it, our draft system is up front, right, very visible. If a guy's at the register, he turns around and sees one of our employees filling a jug of beer, we may catch him off guard and say, "What's that?" And we say, "Well, we have 10 kegs on tap, just like at the bar, but we fill them in jugs," and it's an intriguing concept. So just by what we do, I think certain BMC drinkers, as you said, are intrigued by the idea. So we do quite a bit of upselling, but I make a point not to harass people with upselling, because I mean it pays the bills, and you got to respect that, you know?
Yeah. Last question: what do you see as the future of the beer industry, and do you worry the market might be starting to saturate because everybody and their friends starting a microbrewery now out of their garage?
Gluten-free microbrewery, everything. Yeah, it's definitely saturated, but the craft beer market share is low, still less than 10%.
Yeah.
Bud Light Platinum has between 1 and 2% market share. Bud Light Platinum sells as well as all the Sam Adams brands put together, so there's a lot more liquid getting drank out there than craft beer. I think that the craft beer bubble is going to pop. You know, I've heard that from a lot of venerable, reliable sources. Meaning just that there's just going to be too many breweries for everybody to sell the beer that they want to pay the bills on their new facility that they just implemented because they thought they were selling so much beer last year. But the plus side of that is that awareness is growing.
Yeah.
You know, whereas 15 years ago, a guy who now says, "Yeah, I like a good pale ale, I like a good brown ale," that's not a craft beer expert, but to appreciate the basics of craft beer, the rising tide floats all ships. Awareness is growing a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think some breweries will have to downsize, some breweries will have to close, and what determines that, I don't know yet, and I don't know if anybody does.
Right. All right. Well, that does it for the interview with Jeremy from Westmere Beverage Brew Crew.
Thank you.
Check out his gluten-free beer, Steadfast. What's the website? Steadfast.com?
Steadfastbeer.com.
Steadfastbeer.com. All right. So thanks for coming over.
Thank you for having me.
Yep.
And cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
Hey, welcome to another special episode of Chad's Beer Reviews. I told you I was going to come make a video at my beer store. Well, I'm finally here at Westmere Beverage on Western Ave in Guilderland. So let's go inside and take a look around. This is Jeremy. You are the manager?
I'm a manager of this place, yep.
And he's going to just give us a quick tour of the store, and although I could do it myself.
Sure, I'll show you around. I'll start you over here. This is our new arrivals section. May beer is new to us, or new in general. We put it up on the shelf for about 3 weeks. We have a whole following of people who check things on the shelf because they kind of like to keep up to date on things.
This is like the international section here.
Right. I was going to say like imported beer, but that makes it sound like a Heineken or something. It's like our imported craft beer. Over here we have Belgium. We stock over 135 different Belgian ales in all shapes and sizes. This is Canada and France here.
And we move through all the unibrows.
Right. We do Scotland, England, Ireland. There's all sorts of Eastern Europe down there. We have a nice German section, probably around 100 different German beers, lagers, wheat beers, all that.
Do you know how to pronounce this one? Is it Weinstephaner or?
You could say Weinstephaner, you could say Weinstephaner.
Weinstephaner.
You could say it many ways, probably. Yeah, German beers are pretty prone to mispronunciation, I found. I don't really. And here's Russia, Poland, Czech Republic, Italy. Italy actually is producing some of the craziest beers right now. They have like a chestnut ale.
I've never had an Italian beer. Not to
Me neither.
check one of those out.
We have Jamaica, right next to Austria, go figure. Spain, Mexico, all sorts of Latin American countries.
I like the mini kegs down there.
Actually, that's one of the things I'm most proud of is our assortment of 5-liter mini kegs.
I was gonna say that, like most places you get one or two.
Right. Well, I started stocking some of the stranger ones on a whim, and on a hot weekend in the summer, someone will come in and drop $40 on one, just like the weirdest beer you would think to be in there. and they sell, so I like to carry a good variety.
One of the cooler sections back here.
This kind of, the selection back here kind of changes based on whoever's filling it. Usually the guys who really like craft beer fill it. You can see we have a pretty eclectic assortment of bombers and everything. They put basically what they like to drink in the cooler, and our customers respond really well to that actually. We have a nice store, German 12-packs, English and other international 6-packs and 4-packs. And we have a big old American craft beer section.
Browns up there, I've had all 4 of those.
Oh, you got
we
Lake.
like to support local breweries actually in a big way. I've met the owner of most of these breweries, and they're all good people and they're all doing really good things, and they support our local economy, so we do what we can to push their beer for them.
I just had a Lake Placid stout at the beer fest a couple weeks ago, and it was
Really?
awesome. Yeah.
They have 3 beers in big production, but if you go up to their brew pub in Lake Placid, you can find anything.
Yeah.
They brew every style.
This is the like American craft section over here. This is like New England beers.
Yep.
Like these are from New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine.
Massachusetts, yep. Right. We have Maryland and more Massachusetts behind you here. This is Pennsylvania now. Victory Stout. Flying Dog. Yeah. We're into Vermont. Magic Cat and such.
Yeah. I've had all of those. I'm trying to start on the Long Trail. That Long Trail was okay. Otter Creek's pretty good. I haven't had any of the Woolivers, the organic beers, have you?
Their Walliver's Brown Ale actually is delicious. I don't get into them too much. They're more of a regional brewery. I tend to like to sample the more obscure things.
And here we got one of the most famous craft breweries is Dogfish Head, which I've liked almost everything that I've had of theirs.
Have you
They're
had
like the holy grail of American microbeers?
And then down here we get into the New York brews, the home brews.
Right.
Well, for us.
Yeah, these are our hometown beers here. You see Browns again, more Cooperstown. Middle Ages brewery from Syracuse. They make really good English style beers.
I love Brooklyn.
The Hebrew and the Coney Island are. I've only had a few of theirs, and they're. I like the Hebrew or the Messiah Bold. I didn't really like the Genesis.
I like all their bombers.
Yeah.
They're great. They're top notch beer.
I liked the key. Well, I like Mother's Milk and Hurricane Kitty with some 2 Perry's doubles. Capital. Right here is one of my all-time favorites, especially this one.
And you guys are cheaper by like 40 cents to $1 than my beverage center.
Which beverage? No, I don't know. Just good to know that. I think we probably have the best looking spread of rogue beers around here too. I think we have everything we're allowed to have by them. It's nice.
Allowed to have.
Well, whatever the distributor chooses to carry. We
Yeah.
got it all.
Everything's done by distributor.
Yeah, it's
We forgot to mention Amagang, is that how you
right.
pronounce it?
Yep, that's right.
Out of Cooperstown, which another high-end, real craft brewery.
Actually, they're like rated in
A lot
the
of Belgian style.
top 3 breweries in the world. Certain survey. I read it in Beer Advocate actually.
And then over here is where you got your big displays of the big 3.
We actually have California microbrews here, right?
Yeah.
Adjacent to all the macro beer, ironically.
I see you're still out of the Sierra Nevada torpedo.
So is everybody.
Yeah, everybody's out.
1,000 cases behind. Then we go through California. We got all our canned microbrews. Then we have Sam Adams and Saranac. They're kind of like regional micros. And I think that's everything.
Yeah. And there's more coolers over there we can go take a look at.
Which is just
But,
the domesticated
I
beers.
have to jump out. I need to run around.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Well, thanks for
Yeah, thanks
spending a few
for giving
moments.
us a little tour.
Sure, my pleasure. You're welcome here anytime.
What I like about brew crew is you can make your own 6-pack here. So just grab an empty 6-pack carrier and just grab 1 beer or 2. I used to drink 2 of a beer, but now I'm down to 1 because I need to lose some of the weight. So I'm down to 1 beer a day instead of 2. I got another Saranac caramel porter. Look, they only have 1. They have 4 beers left, apparently. Let's go look at the cooler on the other side. Not surprising they got a Corona display because Cinco de Mayo was just a few days ago. Over here we got basically the same thing that's on the other side of the store, except everything's refrigerated. You can make 6-packs out of these too. I guess that's about it. So thanks for watching this special episode of Chad's Beer Reviews. Bye. Alright, we're here at Westmere Beverage. This is Jeremy, the manager.
Hi there.
And I'm just let you do all the talking, so give us a tour of the store.
All right, cool. Well, we're at the front door, so let's start here. This is the main room and our domestic and import cooler. This is our selection of beer that's roughly similar or equivalent to what you'll find in a grocery store.
Right.
So it's all right now. Here's just a continuation of that. This is our new arrivals, seasonals, and new releases shelf. A while ago we made the decision to put a shelf right up front to sort of showcase what's new and what's cool. We actually do very well if the customers actually tend to gravitate toward it when they come in. So right now we're in the middle of spring seasonals. We got some winter seasonals left. We have some gift packs. In this aisle we have all beer that's not from the United States that doesn't fit into the category of regular old beer. We have it divided by country. Actually, before we get to the beer, we have a artisanal cider section. We have about 25 or so high-end apple and pear ciders. Well, like I said before, it's organized by country. This wide section right here is all Belgian beer. We have approximately 150 different Belgian beers in stock every day, ranging from high-end lambics to things that most people are familiar with, like Chimay and Corsican. Over on this side, we have Canada, which rolls into England. Say we have about 100 English beers as well. This section goes from all the way back there to right here. England goes into Ireland and Scotland. On this side we have a massive German selection, again with about 150 beers. We have a new refrigerator for our mini kegs, which we will be plugging in this summer for people's party enjoyment. Here we have France, Spain, Italy, Portugal, some Scotland, a little bit of Denmark, some Greece, Norway, Ukraine, Russia, New Zealand. Even have some Turkish beer. We have Australia, the Dominican Republic. Then we get into the Asian countries down here with a little bit of Brazil, of course Japan, China, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, and there's our, actually we have quite an amazing selection of non-alcoholic beer if the need ever arises. Okay, this is the back end of our domestic aisle, which is arranged by state. Here we have New Hampshire. It isn't an entirely geographic flow that we have, but we do have the states separated. We have some Illinois, of course, Goose Island, Maine, Vermont. We just got McNeil's Brewery from Vermont. That's a big deal for us. Delaware, the coveted Dogfish Head Brewery. Massachusetts here goes into Maryland, more Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. Big jump down to Louisiana. And we actually have a whole 15-foot section devoted to New York beer. This is our treasured local brewery, Brown's, just 11 miles away in Troy. And we have beers ranging from all the way down in Long Island to the very western tip of New York, southern tier. In the middle is Brooklyn Brewery, Middle Ages brewery from Syracuse, Ithaca, Ommegang, world famous Belgian beer from Cooperstown. Got some Lake Placid, Keegan from Kingston. We're very proud of New York beer. I personally believe that we make a lot of great beer in this state. It all falls into a nice price point since it's local, and it's kind of our pride.
Yep.
Rogue from Oregon, all 45 Rogue beers there.
Wow.
Got some Michigan, Colorado, one of the first craft beer states. Got Left Hand, Great Divide, Boulder Beer, Breckenridge, Avery, and the promised land for hopheads, big old California beer section. Of course, we have Stone, Green Flash, Lagunitas, Full Sail out from Oregon too, but they're in with California beer. Anchor, North Coast. And then we have our craft beer in a can. This section, since I've been here, I've just seen grow. It's not only convenient, but if you're a real beer snob and you don't want any light touching your beer, a can is the most foolproof way of accomplishing that.
Yep.
So like I said, I've seen this section absolutely take off since I started here. We even have our own little canning craft brewery from Garrettsville, New York, Butternuts. And here we have our Sam Adams and Saranac sections, two regional breweries that they come in at a good price point, and also they dominate with their sheer number of SKUs. We have a good price on Saranac 12 packs. We keep a pallet, and over there we do the same for Sam Adams. Saranac recently acquired the rights to Lake Placid Brewery, so they brew all the big brands like Ubu Ale out of the Utica Brewery. That's why we use there. We also have a nostalgic beer selection. Most of these beers here, Schaefer, Schlitz, Schmidt, Peels, are owned by Pabst now. They actually have quite a business going with their nostalgic brands. Apple of our eye is the draft beer station back here. We have 10 kegs on tap every day, and we rotate them out as they kick. We do our best to have a good variety, and often try to grab some rare kegs, stuff that you can only get on tap.
Right.
We feel that we've drummed up a pretty good following for our growlers. Instead of just offering a 64-ounce traditional growler size, we also have these 32-ounce growlers and these 16-ounce growlers. They have the same cap fitting. So oftentimes when we put on beers that cost a little more, like the $30 vintage Oscar Blues 1050 that we're pouring right now,
Wow.
people will opt for a smaller jug, not only to save money, but some of these beers are fairly high gravity, and 64 ounces of them is a lot to sit down to unless you have a couple friends along.
All right, so you filled that up.
Yeah, I'll give you
All
a
the
really
way.
good fill on it. So that's a good growler fill. And this is our new pride and joy. This is our new micro brew and craft beer cooler. This replaces the ancient cooler that we demolished in the back. It's a 9-door cooler. We have 8 functional doors right now.
And you can walk in right there, huh?
Yep, this is how we fill the cooler. I'm gonna see what only the staff normally see. This is inside information here, proprietary. And then the rest of the doors, we just try to keep a good selection and variety. For instance, we have all the big craft breweries like Stone, Dogfish Head, Smutty Nose, Flying Dog, Rogue, Avita. We have a New York beer only door, except for this little rack here. We got an English beer door. We have a German 12-pack door. We have 2 doors of singles. This is my personal favorite part because at the end of a shift when I'm looking for a beer to take home,
Yeah.
I always do right by these 2 doors here. A bunch of German beer, English beer, almost every Sam Smith's in existence cold. We even have a rack of nitrogenated pub cans, good Belgian selection cold, and then some American 22s. I'm very proud of this cooler.
Yep.
We just started dabbling in selling glassware. We've been milking our contacts to get as much variety as we can. You can see that we've already gotten quite a bit of variety. We find that glassware sells phenomenally for us. We've been getting lots of questions for a lot of months, and there's a lot of happy customers right now. And we're particularly proud of what we're doing here. And hopefully, things will only get better. We'll continue to get more types of glassware. This is a fun little rack. It's our 5-liter mini kegs, predominantly German. There's one that stands out, Rogue Yellow Snow. If you're ever looking to drop $50 on 5 liters of IPA, that's the way to go. So if you're looking for more information on what it is that we do here, you can go to our website, which is www.brew-crew.com. You can give us a call, area code 518-456-1100, or you can find us on Facebook just by looking up Westmere Beverage. Thanks for watching.